call. My next guest is a very funny and imaginative writer who has worked on the National Lampoon, Mr. Mike's Mondo Video, and Penthouse Magazine, where she has a monthly column. She has just published this book, which I earlier inaccurately described as something. The correct title is A Visit from the Footbinder, as opposed to what I said, which I believe was A Visit to the Footbinder. The correct name, A Visit from the Footbinder, and Other Stories, which is receiving terrific reviews. Please welcome Emily Prager. This must be really exciting for you. You got a great review that I was reading this afternoon in the New York Times. These stories are funny, naughty, and tough. They reinforce my credo, aberrant behavior is the spice of life. Dan Aykroyd.
That's correct. Mine too.
Yeah, he would know aberrant behavior, I'm guessing, wouldn't he?
I think Danny would know, yeah. Absolutely.
I guess I can ask you about the title, A Visit from the Footbinder.
Yeah. Well, I was glad that you changed it from to the Footbinder.
Yeah, I'm sorry I screwed that up.
Because the women in the house, since they all had bound feet, wouldn't be able to get over to the Footbinders anyway because they couldn't walk, you know. So, well, I was interested in it. The title sailed into my head while I was doing some editing, actually, for Mr. Mike's Mondo Video. And I liked it because it was about, it's something that I do in my writing, which is a combination of violence and then an overlay of delicacy. I've done several things like that, the parody of the Tampax folder, you know, the folder that comes in the box. Well, I did a parody of that, but never mind. And several other things like that. So it combined these two elements, which were extreme violence and then the incredible delicacy of medieval China, which was just fantastic and filled with things. So I did a tremendous amount of research on that particular story, as a matter of fact. Delved into medieval history and everything else, came out with great things. For example, there are a lot of professions in there. The thing takes place, the mother of the girl is building her own burial tomb. Something, I was watching that thing on Sean, you know, on Channel 13, and I was thinking to myself, people building their own burial tomb went on for years, you know, 20 years of people employed and stuff like that. So this woman is spending like a sailor building her own burial tomb and trying to avoid basically binding her daughter's feet.
What exactly, when you say binding, what was the purpose, and good heavens, what did it look like?
The purpose is, well, actually it's very fascinating. The custom of foot binding lasted for about 800 years, and the purpose...
Kind of a fad, well, then, huh?
Exactly. You know, and they were trying to figure out how it started. There's a legend that the emperor built a golden lotus, 6-foot golden lotus, for his favorite concubine. And then she bound up her feet like toe shoes in order to dance on the golden lotus. And all of the ladies of the house got real excited about this and then they took it on as a way to dress. In essence, what it is that you, well, excuse me, you take the 4 toes here and bind them under. Then you bind this part of the heel to the front of the foot, and then this toe, the big toe, is bound upward so that it looks like the point of a moonsicle. And, well, a moonsicle was a special thing. Anyway, you did this when the child was about 5 to 7 years old, so they have very tiny feet.
But they could kick in the NFL, which is the other thing.
I don't know if they could or not. Maybe they could, I don't know.
But
anyway,
that must have been horribly painful.
Well, evidently it was painful, and most of the things I read, they would say it was painful for about 2 years, and then became numb.
They went numb.
It went numb, and a lot of people, of course, did die. They died of gangrene and other things like that. But also, in a very curious way, it was very cute. I hate to use that word.
Now, you've actually seen feet that have been bound.
Well, in order to do this cover, Frank...
Well, let's talk about the cover when we're finished with this topic.
Well, I was just going to say that Frank Morris, who did the cover, and I went to the Metropolitan Museum to look at the tiny shoes, one of the pieces of research we did for the cover. And they literally are about that big. You know, it's almost amazing to see them. You can't physically believe that anybody could get into them.
Adult Asian women with shoes and feet no bigger than...
Than cat toys.
Cat toys.
Correct. Right. That's exactly what it was. And it's unbelievable to see them, you know. It's an amazing thing. So
you can't walk like that,
no,
can you?
No, but you're meant to be carried in a litter.
Oh, I see.
Not a litter box, you know, a litter. And, you know, you're so aristocratic that you clearly can't walk and you know, just sit around and look beautiful and swell up, I guess. I don't know. Well, the other thing was that as the thing developed, I mean, it became more than just a fad. It became, in fact, a national perversion. Men, when discussing their wives, in terms of beauty, a prospective wife would discuss the size of their feet.
Oh, really?
Yes, absolutely. They had such things as small foot beauty contests in which, honest to God, in which the emperor, in search of concubines, would come incognito in his litter. And this was a way for peasant girls to rise up in status, because women had really no place to go in that society. They couldn't work hard enough, so they really weren't very valuable, except in the sense that they could get you in with the aristocracy by becoming a concubine or coming to the attention of the emperor in some way. So if you were a peasant who had a daughter that was pleasing you, and you would bind her feet at a young age and hope that when they held the small foot beauty contest, the emperor would show up and
Good heavens.
choose
so
them.
guys would actually get together and brag about whose wife had the smallest feet.
Not only that, but when the missionaries came, the British missionaries in 1850, I think it is, the women, the female missionaries were just outraged by this thing. So they called great groups of young Chinese men together and in lecture halls, and they started lecturing them and holding up pictures of bound feet, and there were riots. Because the men, it was such a perversion of it. It was very secretive, too. I mean, you didn't really, there were all kinds of rules and things you did with binding cloths and ways that you were supposed to sit, and a mystical fascination grew up. People would steal each other's tiny shoes when they were angry and cut them up. And so these men, for the first time, were actually presented with photographs of these it would be like a porno photograph.
Yeah.
And there was great rioting, and as a result of it, was kind of fun.
It's a fascinating but strange topic, but we don't want to mislead the people by indicating that this is the only topic covered in the book.
No.
It's just a story and
This
a
is
collection
one of the stories,
of
yes.
stories. And I did mention the cover, and to my way of thinking, I don't know that that's the kind of thing people want to run right out and buy.
Well, I'll tell you, it's had an amazing effect. Just the other day, someone was telling me that they went to Czechoslovakia, and they had the book in their suitcase, and they got to customs, and the Czech customs people took it right out, started laughing, and then whipping through it. They couldn't believe it. They thought the cover was really funny. So, hey, even a communist can enjoy it. I don't know.
Unfortunately, we're running way short of time, and I feel terrible about this. I can only ask you to come back because we haven't even gotten to other matters in the book. You're an actress, in addition to other things. You write for Penthouse.
Yes,
How
I do.
Now, you're described as a feminist.
Right.
How can a feminist be in the employ of Mr. Guccione in Penthouse magazine?
Well, I'm in the missionary position over there.
We'll be right back. Emily Prager. Thank you very much, Bill. We're out of time. I want to thank our studio audience and, of course, Emily Prager. Emily, thank you, and continued success. Mr. Michael Keaton, Paul Schaefer, and the rest of the folks who participated in the great Chinese food delivery race. We'll see you tomorrow night with Brother Theodore. Thank you, folks. My next guest is a very funny and perceptive writer who has a monthly column in Penthouse magazine and who has just published this book of short stories, A Visit from the Footbinder. We're delighted to have her back with us again. Please welcome Emily Prager. Thank you very much for coming back. Did you see this, by the way?
I did. We had that last time. Isn't that amazing?
That's very strange. David said that it still continues, this practice of foot binding. Is that anything you know about?
Still continues. I heard that in Taiwan, up until the 1950s, the peasants, thinking that they were emulating the aristocracy, continued to bind feet, but I didn't know that it was still continued today.
Very strange.
I believe the Manchus outlawed it.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Awful. The last time we were here, we talked a lot about the title of your book, A Visit from the Footbinder. But in addition to being a columnist and an author, you are also an actress.
Yes, I am.
And where would folks have seen you?
They might have seen me on The Edge of Night, a soap opera that was on from 1968. Well, I was on it from 1968 to 1972. And it was a most frightening and amazing experience, I must say. The first day I went to the soap opera, the director came up to me and he said, "When in doubt, look worried." Best piece of advice I ever had. The important thing to know about the soap opera was that it was live on CBS. Live, in other words, you did it. When you did it, you actually saw what was going on 5 days a week. So if, for example, you had a storyline or something like that, then it was possible to have up to 20 pages of dialogue per day, 5 days a week. And not the most memorable dialogue in the world. I remember one of my favorite lines ever had was, "What a beautiful time of year to snap out of a coma."
You mean you had just come to?
In those days, no. Actually, that wasn't me. It was about somebody else. But in those days, you didn't have sex on a soap opera. In fact, it was forbidden. And you didn't have that much murder either. So what happened was people went into coma.
Yeah.
And of course, you would pray to go into coma because then you'd be on 3-4 times a week, paid by the day, and you wouldn't have any lines.
No, not a lot of chatting at the bedside.
But we didn't have cue cards. What we had was teleprompters, and teleprompters were machines that would run the dialogue, and they were run by somebody in the back. And so what often happened was that you would be, did you ever notice on a soap opera how the first and last lines of speeches are always the same? And this is because of this dialogue problem. So I would say to you, "David, you look tired." And your line would be, "Tired? Well, I'm worried about my mother." And I'd say, "Your mother?" This is tough. So we actually had a woman on the show who was so terrified that she would pee.
I'm sorry.
No,
she would.
Well, pee. She had to, after several accidents, she actually had to wear rubber pants. I had a...
That must have been fun, huh?
It was great. I had a guy who played my husband who, what he would do is when he went up, he would start laughing hysterically. But in order to cover the laughter, he would hold it in, and then he would start crying. So tears would be running down his face, and of course they'd turn the camera on me because they couldn't be looking at him. And of course I'd be looking worried.
Yeah, exactly. Now, what part were you on The Edge of Night?
I played Lori Ann Carr, who was the daughter of Mike and Nancy Carr, who are still main characters today. I was a heroine. I was kidnapped.
By heroine, you were an okay. You were good.
In those days, a heroine meant that nothing that happened to you could be your fault. I'll give you an example of this. It was in the 60s, and so they decided to write a storyline for me that involved my being kidnapped. In fact, I was kidnapped twice on the show.
Now, that's just bad luck, isn't it?
Well, yeah, when they couldn't think of a third time, I had to leave. So I was kidnapped twice on the show. Oh, yeah. Okay. So they involved the storyline had to do with marijuana. But, so they had a whole day, I remember, that was about the fact that this guy who was a psychopathic killer took me to a party at which marijuana was smoked. Only the censor went through the script and took out the word marijuana. So I was left with things to say like, what's all that blue smoke? But my favorite acting problem, I was sorry you don't have your phone because I was going to ask you if you'd like to try it, was the one-way obscene phone call. Now this I'll explain what that is.
Do you need a phone? Would it help if you had a phone here, Emily?
Oh, if you want. I thought maybe you would. I thought maybe you'd like to try it because it's such an exciting thing to do.
Here's the phone as it is.
Oh, great. Well, you can't have it.
Wait a minute. Here's a phone. Okay.
Right,
now,
so
this is the one-way obscene phone call.
You want to try this?
Sure. You tell me what you need.
It goes like this. You're in the kitchen. We're having breakfast. Okay. We're just talking like this. And so, how are you, David?
Fine.
Good morning.
Fine.
You're looking very well.
You look good. Nice to see you.
Ring. Okay. The audience can't hear what's going on, of course, because it's obscene and you're not allowed to hear it on television. So David is now left with the problem of communicating to all of us the fact that he is hearing an obscene phone call.
David Hartman's parents? Stop it. So you do that with a lot of gasps and sighs?
Oh, God. Gasps and sighs and moans, yeah.
Now, what did, how old were I? But you were very young at this time, weren't you?
Yes, I was very young.
And also going to school?
Yes, it was. I was going to Columbia University studying anthropology, and of course this was the time when Columbia was taken over. If you remember, there were sit-ins and so forth. So I would go to the soap opera at 8 in the morning, and then I'd come out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, because it was live from 3:30 to 4, I think, and then I'd go up to Columbia and sit in.
Did people recognize you then from the soap opera?
Well, let's see. When you mean at Columbia, no, they weren't watching television. They were, sitting in. So no. But
it's a full-time job.
But no, I do have a favorite story of being recognized, though, which took place. I went to a small museum on my day off, and there were a bunch of little girls there. It was a class, like a 6th grade class or something, and little girls and boys. And the little girls came up to me, and they were all excited. Oh, it's Lori Ann, and I had to sign autographs and everything like that, and I did, and it took some time, blah, blah, blah. And then it was done, and the little girls wafted away, and a little boy came over to me, and he looked at me, and he said, "Why can't you be William Shatner?"
Yeah, perhaps the most asked rhetorical question of the 80s. Why can't you be William Shatner? We'll be right back with Emily Prager. Emily, you will be, this is a personal appearance for you.
Yes.
Where will that be?
No,
not this one.
Oh, not this one. Yeah, this one. B. Dalton on Wednesday. I think that's the 10th. I'm going to be doing a reading at B. Dalton in the Village, 8th Street and 6th Avenue, 8:30 p.m.
So rent a bus,
Wednesday,
drive down there.
November 10th.
Reading from, a visit from?
Reading from A Visit from the Footbinder.
Great. Thank you very much for being
Thank
here.
you.
And my thanks to Henny Youngman. Now, tomorrow night, Hal Roach and Brooke Shields. It'll be all right. Good night. There's Santa showing how he was able to take off well. He went from 320 down to 170 as his goal, I guess, and we're proud he could be here tonight. My next guest has been a soap opera star, a contributing editor for the National Lampoon and Penthouse. Those are both magazines. And now the author of this book right here, A Visit from the Footbinder and Other Stories. We're delighted to have her back with us here tonight. Please welcome Emily Prager. Nice to see you. You always walk out so promptly. I appreciate that. You come right out and sit down and get right to work.
Yes, indeed.
Have you been doing a lot of television for talking about your book?
Let's see. I did Coca Crystal's cable show.
Yes.
It's really a fascinating experience. Have you ever been on cable?
No, I've never. Yes, I have been on cable.
Well, it's so loose compared to the network shows. You know what I mean? You go there and you kind of sit down and you do it. I think it costs $125 to get an hour in color of live airtime. So anyone presumably could do it if you sign up in time or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's amazing.
You just put down your money, show up, and do a show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty much. You sign up. She told me that she signed up for it, and then that was it. And then she just goes there and pays for it.
Was this an enjoyable experience for you?
Yeah, it was great, actually.
Yeah.
It was very funny. There was a baby there who was crying. It was just a loose kind of a thing. It was interesting.
And you talked about your book?
I did.
Now, you also did a reading, which this is interesting. Describe this for me.
What, at B. Dalton?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what I did was I read different excerpts from different things in the book, and to a lot of people who were standing there, and then I signed books. But I find it's an interesting thing. Now that I've written the book, now that the book is out, it kind of has a life of its own. I feel like its trainer, you know? I no longer feel in a way that I had anything to do with it at all. You know, you sit in your room and you brainwash yourself for a living, you know, and translate all kinds of fantasies into words and phrases, and that's really the input you have with yourself. Like when you perform, you are actually very involved with what's happening. But once a book is out, what happens is that people read it, and you know, it makes the jump from whatever's on the page to their synapse, and then it has a life with them apart from you. So it's interesting. You get kind of a, I don't know, I feel like I stand in the wings and kind of cheer it on and stuff like that. It's funny.
Now, describe for me what happens at a reading. You show up in a room, and you sit down?
It was at B. Dalton. I stood up because I have more energy than actually standing. So.
And you read. How much? You don't read cover to cover,
No.
obviously.
You read a, 2 or 3 paragraphs. Well, no, a couple of pages.
Yeah.
A couple of pages.
And hecklers? People...
No. No hecklers.
Well, that's
Thank
good.
God. No. No.
I was reading in here this afternoon the story about the agoraphobiac.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
Well, the story is called Agoraphobia, and it's about a period in a woman's life. I find that a lot of women in New York, maybe this is true of all urban centers, seem to go through a period where they become sort of like shut-ins. And they begin to smoke too many cigarettes and sit home and start having less and less contact with people unless it's over the phone. And this particular woman, there's I don't know, it's called a housewife's disease or something, but it's called agoraphobia and sort of fear of the marketplace, fear of interacting with other people. So this particular girl has it. And she begins to hallucinate that she is connected to all the electrical things in her apartment by a large ion beam that kind of goes through the sides of her body like this. And she has the fear that if she goes through the door, somehow the sides will pull out and she'll be cut off and inert and juiceless, kind of like a desiccated thing. Anyway, she gets invited to a party at Christmas time, and it's really cold, so she has to get herself out of the house to go to it. And that's
now, have you ever experienced symptoms of this yourself?
I have, as I say. As I spend long hours and weeks in my apartment by myself, I do begin to feel as if somehow that is my only contact, the television, for example, is my only contact with the outside world.
Yeah.
I don't know if people felt this way about radio, because radio involves so much fantasy, but video. I was thinking, is this like, would it be a mirror image for you? Do you have a perception of, I don't know, you're on television almost every night. Now, do you have a perception of that objectively, apart from your own life, of what you, in terms of a viewer, is, or, you know?
I don't know what you mean.
Well, what do I mean? I mean, you must have a personality apart from your own that the others, you know, think about. When they think David Letterman, they have a feeling for who you are. Do you think about that at all?
No.
I mean, you try not.
But I sort of know what you're getting at, but it's very odd. It's well, we'll talk about that some other time.
Yeah.
Maybe now, you know, I was looking at your information about you in general, and there is something that I've wanted to talk about for a while that I find that you also have an interest in, and that's is his name Barney Clark?
Yeah, the man with the artificial heart.
Yeah. Now, what are your feelings about this circumstance here?
Well, it's pretty interesting. You know, I was thinking about what to get for Christmas. I thought, gee, I'd like to get my grandparents some artificial hearts, you know. It's such an amazing thing, maybe one of the most important things that's ever happened. And I was thinking, do you get stage fright at all?
Yes.
Do you get nervous?
Yes.
Does your heart thump
Yep.
fast? Well, the principle of an artificial heart is that it has a steady beat. So I was thinking to myself, what happens when you're afraid? Do you feel it in your hands and your face? I mean, what happens when you see somebody that you know turns you on? Your heart is not, you know, skipping a beat. It's not doing anything but beating, no matter what other chemicals are going through your body. And I was just thinking about, what does it mean? I mean, I wonder what happens to him.
So what you're saying, the purpose of this device is to give this man a constant beat
That's right.
every second of his life.
That's right. And actually, in human life, the heart is very important, it seems to me, as I've started thinking about this, in terms of emotion, which is, of course, why it's always been the seat of emotion. We have Valentine's Day and so forth. But, you know, it's just, I thought, well, what happens to those feelings? Are they all cerebral? What?
Yeah.
I was reading the Times today that they said that they had put the beat too fast, they think. That they had made it beat too fast,
Now,
and
what
that's
happens
why it
there?
cracked.
Yeah. It cracked.
It cracked,
See, now,
they were saying in the Times, I think, because they made it beat too fast, so they've slowed the beat down. I don't know, it brings up so many interesting things about life and what is life.
Well, now, I think I read that he would like to go out and play golf, which he can do theoretically. If he doesn't get too far from the cart, he can play golf.
Right.
Because he's got to carry this equipment with him.
Right.
But now, just walking across a golf course, your heart rate would increase.
Yeah.
Now, he's on this steady thing, yeah.
Well, you wonder how much the life just obviously changes. I mean, it's just got to be very different, but what the changes, I don't know. I was thinking, for example, I understand that they gave him a key to turn off the machine if he wanted to die. But I was thinking, how else would he die? I mean, we do define death, as I understand it, by the cessation of the heart. We don't really recognize brain death as yet. So they're really, presumably, theoretically, he could live forever.
Yeah.
Is that right?
I don't know. I know on our staff we use the definition of brain death. That's it. I don't know about the other, but that's no. So I don't know, but it's a very and I don't even know that you can be talking about it because you keep hearing that he's doing better and better.
Yeah.
So you don't really want to
I mean, it's not like you want him to do well. I mean, if you want these things
sure.
to work. I mean, but it is odd. I mean, it is not.
And there are a million jokes you could be doing about the guy, but you don't think that's fair either because he's still...
No, and he's going through so much awful stuff. You know?
Yeah, it's strange.
It is weird, though.
What about the holiday season? How do you feel about that now?
I don't know. I'm trying. I'm finding Christmas a little anachronistic this year. I mean, you know, now that there's genetic engineering, I mean, more medical stuff, but genetic engineering, now that we have ovarian implants and fertilization in vitro, virgin birth can be every little girl's choice. You know what I mean? It's not, well, it's true. I mean, presumably it's something the kids are looking forward to now in later life. It's just not, you know. So there's that. I'm trying to understand that. But I have been trying. I went out, I bought some presents. I bought an acid rain test kit for some friends and me, and a packet of ready-to-eat dried astronaut peaches for a friend of mine who broke up with his girlfriend, is living in a movie studio in his office out in L.A. And, you know, I'm trying to... Nothing
really says happy holiday like dried astronaut food,
does it?
For me, that's it for me, pretty much.
Yeah. But, you know, 10% unemployment rate hardly puts you in the spirit of giving.
Yeah, things are strange.
It is, it's weird. I think maybe we should make up some new holidays.
Yeah. Well, I'm all for that.
I was thinking maybe Pacmas would be good.
Pacmas?
Mm-hmm. Celebrate the birth of Pac-Man. And, or I was thinking maybe Charismas was another one where we could have, it would be a special day in which the public could just go for celebrities. And celebrities would be expecting it, so there wouldn't be, you know, it'd be a chase.
Yeah, you know, I mentioned, we were talking about hearts earlier. You even have them on your sweater.
I made this.
The name of the book, of course, is A Visit from the Footbinder. You made that sweater?
Yes, I did.
It's very impressive. This is Emily Prager. She makes some of her own clothing. We'll be back with Steve Wright. Thank you very much. My next guest is a performer and a writer whose most recent publication is A Visit from the Footbinder, of which I don't have a copy right here. An early project of hers was Mr. Mike's Mondo video, and this is just about to be released in video cassette form. Ladies and gentlemen, we're happy to have her back with us. Please welcome Emily Prager. Emily. How are you? Nice to see you. I'm all right. That's, now, I know you were going to England the last time I spoke to you.
Right, that's where I got this dress.
Now, yeah, that's an unusual dress, isn't it?
Yes, I bought this in the Kensington Market from a guy with a mohawk hairdo and a spiked dog collar. He designed it.
Well.
Men are full of surprises.
Well, now, what is this thing in the front? It looks like some sort of protective
it's a little
vest.
pinafore. That's what it is. It's a little bit fascist fashion.
That's,
yeah.
well, certainly interesting. Now, what's this deal? Is that yours
that's
or
something I add. It's a little leather bracelet.
It's very nice.
Yeah, tarnished innocence is my favorite thing.
Now, you were over there to lecture about your book?
Well, to publish the book. The book was published there.
Published in England.
In March, and I am now the Julio Iglesias of women's literature.
It was a big success,
yes,
wasn't
it was. Yes,
yeah, and now what all did you do besides you answered questions, lectured?
Yeah, I did a lot of interviews and answered a lot of questions, and I went on radio talk shows. I didn't do any television there because in England they only have 4 channels, and they have not yet discovered the idea of the interesting talk show guest. You know, you have to be a major celebrity to get on a talk show.
Was it fun doing a British radio?
Yes, it was. It was great.
Yeah, and the book is soon to be published in Sweden?
Sweden, that's correct.
But a little bit differently,
That's
isn't it?
right. They have expurgated one of the stories.
Now, why is that? Tell us which one is being taken out.
The Alumni Bulletin, it's called, and it's a little too racy for Sweden.
Racy in what regard? Not.
Well, actually, it has to do with the fact that the girls in the story take a lot of drugs, and I don't know, something about drugs in Sweden.
They objected to that, right?
Yeah, it was the drugs they objected to, not the wooden phalluses.
Well, if you got to choose, I guess.
You know.
Now, we mentioned an earlier project.
Yes.
You must be very excited about this.
I am
Soon
so
to be in video cassette form.
Right.
This Mr. Mike's Mondo video.
Here's the box. I brought you the box.
Yeah, well, this will be great. This is what you'll be looking for, ladies and gentlemen, when you...
Picture of Mr. Mike on the front, and Paul Schaefer's name spelled wrong on the back. So,
Paul, no kidding, that's right.
That's right.
Yep, they've
But
added
we'll
an extra
try
E
and
there,
fix
haven't they?
that in the next printing. Yeah, Mr. Mike's Mondo Video.
You were a writer-performer in this?
That's correct. I also have a little film in Mondo Video that I shot with a home movie camera, and I'm also co-author of the haunting theme from Mondo Video, the lyrics thereof.
Wow.
So-
Now, do you want to explain to people the origin of this project and its history? and so
Mr.
on?
Mike's Mondo Video was a hour-and-a-half comedy special that was meant to go in the time slot of Saturday Night Live when Saturday Night Live was on hiatus.
This is 6 years ago?
This is, yeah, 6 years ago. So I think it's 1979. It's hard to remember now. But anyway, so it was to be produced and directed by Michael O'Donoghue. It was produced and directed by Michael O'Donoghue. The executive producer was Lorne Michaels of Saturday Night Live. Written by Mitchell Glazer, Michael O'Donoghue, Dirk Wittenborn, and myself. Musical director, your own Paul Schaefer. And he also appears in it. Anyway, so we wrote the script, and we sent it in, and it was approved, and we proceeded to make Mondo Video, and then we showed it to the censors, and there were a lot of things that they didn't like about it, even though they'd actually approved the script.
The script was shown in advance
That's
to whom?
correct.
To NBC
To
here?
NBC,
Yeah.
and it was approved, and then somehow in the final, they didn't like it, and in fact, the NBC censor was quoted as saying it would go on over his dead body. So
So they
anyway,
were crazy about it, is what you're saying.
That's right, that's right. And I brought along a list of some of the things.
Now, is this an actual communication
Well,
from
this
NBC?
is actually not the communication,
I
but
see.
this is
A compilation.
A compilation of the things
Okay.
that they didn't like. And among them are some of the things that are in the clip. Do you think you want to see that first? Or do you want to just
It's your
hear
call.
it?
You tell me. You want to?
Let's look at the clip.
All right, we'll take a look at a bit of Mr. Mike's Mondo Video, soon available for your home pleasure, ladies and gentlemen, and then we'll come back and talk about what they couldn't do here.
Mr. Mike's Mondo Video.
Come on, move those paws.
Hello. When the Mondo crew asked me to appear on their celebrity deformities section of the show, I really couldn't refuse, honestly. In fact, I leapt at the chance. I guess you could say I'm a celebrity. Been in the public eye for a couple of years now, and I'm also deformed. In fact, I'm proud to say I'm an actual genetic mutant, genetically mutated from birth, and that mutation manifests itself in my feet. Now, as you'll see here very shortly, the two sets of middle toes on both my feet are webbed by an actual web of skin, not unlike a reptile. And just to show you that this isn't some cheap makeup trick, I'm going to take a Phillips head screwdriver, and I'm going to pass it on either side of the webbed mass between the toes of both my feet, and then actually take the screwdriver and prod the web of skin here so that you see that, in fact, it is organic and real and much a part of me. And I'd like you to keep that in mind next time you see me.
Mr. Mike's Mondo Video, the television show that can't be shown on television.
Okay, that's great. Take a shower.
All right, now,
All right, well, now
were
they
some of the
needed a
things
lot
covered
of
in
that.
this?
Okay,
All
well,
right.
you saw some clips of the cat swimming school in
Yeah.
Amsterdam, Holland, which they didn't like. You saw there, I think, Paul Schaefer
We did
in
see
his
Paul.
role, and myself,
Yes.
in the cult of Midwestern Americans who worship Jack Lord as the living God in the mainland. It's in the mainland temple of the perfect way. They didn't like that. You saw, of course, the celebrity deformity section, which
Yes,
they
everyone
hated.
seemed to enjoy here.
For some reason, no, they didn't like that. Let's see. Oh, and Laser Bra 2000.
Now, they really couldn't have objected to that. That was just
Well, they
silliness,
did,
wasn't
and
it?
they said that it was a cheap excuse for a striptease.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you, though, about
Yeah.
the cats swimming, Emily.
Yeah.
Now, what do the kitties like to swim?
Okay, well, actually, the cat swimming school is a good story because Mr. Mike claimed that the cats love to swim. In fact, that they actually do swim well.
Uh-huh.
So we wrote the cat swimming school in Amsterdam, Holland, and we went to a swimming pool on top of a building to film this. We had 25 cats, acting cats. And we threw them in the pool. And shortly thereafter, the ASPCA arrived with drawn guns, actually, because they had heard that we were doing terrible things to cats. In fact, cats swim great. It is a very weird thing. You think that animals that are that afraid of water, they hate it so much, wouldn't be able to swim, but they do swim great. And when the ASPCA saw how well they did swim, and in fact that they would climb out of the pool and everything was fine, they let us go ahead with it. So it was all
But now,
right.
having witnessed this event, is it your feeling now that cats do hate it, or that they don't mind it too bad?
Some cats didn't like it, but some cats didn't mind it, actually. We individually blew dry. Every single cat. I just want to make that clear.
Well, now that's the reason they have their guns out. You can't be doing
really
that
well.
to cats.
So, and I have cats myself, so really. And Mr. Mike's cats.
And you
in fact,
didn't
were in
lose a
there.
one.
No, and
Did not lose a one.
Mr. Mike had his own cat swimming there, so that just
All
goes
right.
to show you.
Okay. We got to go away, Emily. We'll be right back there. We're out of time. I want to thank Emily Prager. Emily, nice to see you again. Also, Dominic DiMiola and Graham Chapman. Tomorrow night, ladies and gentlemen, the New York Dairy Princess and her cow, Jimmy Pearsall and his donkey. Marjorie Gross, I believe, is bringing some sort of vulture. So, good night.
Thank you.